Welcome back to the Business Brain Dump podcast. We are here again with Chris DiVecchio. This is part 2, round 2, and we're going to be jumping into some misconceptions around, how you can look after yourself, diving into how business is your sport, and really just understanding from the expert here, like what we can learn and what we can do to become better. So I'm here with Andrea Coftree.
Hey there. So you are definitely going to want to stick around till the end of this, because we're going to also ask Chris to give you guys some realistic takeaways that specifically as entrepreneurs, you can start to kind of build your health stack, kind of habit hack, and ways that you can start to feel better, which in turn normally makes you look better and operate better. So definitely stay tuned. I'm really excited about this episode.
Yeah. And if you missed part 1, it's available. You can hear all about Chris's backstory. But yeah, Chris, why don't you give us just like a kind of one-line intro about, what you do with your clients, and then we can dive into it.
Yeah, I wish I could keep it to one line.
Yeah.
I just tend to talk. I tend to over talk. Love the topic. Yeah, no, thanks guys for having me back. Of course, this is a passion of mine. I really enjoy just sharing. I've been in the fitness industry for 3 decades, so I really enjoy just sharing my experience and just allowing people to sort of download my years of knowledge and experiences to be able to try to help make a difference in their lives as much as I possibly can, in any way I can. I fell in love with fitness primarily there were 2 major events that happened in my life, and I'll just briefly run over those. One, I was hit with a quick misdiagnosis at the age of 16. I was misdiagnosed with childhood leukemia, and they made a wrong diagnosis. In a few days, they realized they made a mistake, and that really just put the fear of life in me that I need to start taking care of my health at a very young age. Secondly, I played hockey growing up. I was on skates since I was 5 years old. I had visions of going to the NHL. Obviously, I didn't make it to the NHL, but I took that very seriously. Going into my freshman year of college, I was playing Division I college hockey. I had a decent first year, but my coach came back the second year and said, "Hey, listen, if you don't put on some size, you're not going to play next year." That put a threat to what could potentially have been my career. At an early age of 16 and 19, I've got a threat for my life. I've got a threat for my career. So those 2 things really sort of set me off on this trajectory of really prioritizing health and fitness. It was a really important part of my life. But I saw as I got older, I graduated college, I started to get into business because I became an entrepreneur, that moving away from sports, there were other things that correlate, that the same things I was doing to level up my athletics and my performance in athletics, there were a lot of correlations between how I level up my life as well as myself as a business athlete. I started to see myself as that. Business was my sport. And so everything that I do, from how I eat to how I train to how I sleep to how I recover, was all commensurate with how I show up as a business athlete, and how I show up with my performance in everything that I do as it relates to whatever business venture I was partaking in. And so, I think the 2 distinctions that are really important to understand when you're thinking about health and fitness is that the gym is a place that we go to build strength in our body, but health is created with everything else that you do. So some people, I think, sort of get this idea that if they go to the gym, that's the only way that they can really prioritize and maintain health. And I think it's a big misconception, because if you feel like the gym is the only place that you can build health, and people are usually strapped for time, if they can't make it to the gym, they feel like they're failing on their health, when in fact there is 10 other things they could be doing that day that are unrelated to the gym, that they could be building into their day and integrating into their activities just by simple choices and decisions that could have a massive impact on their health.
Well,
now, they may not be strong and fit as much as they would like to be, but they certainly would be making a huge impact on the quality of their health, which is associated with energy, confidence, how they're looking. If you're looking or feeling tired, those things can be your mood. Those things can be dramatically impacted with several things that you can do outside of the gym.
I've got to say that feels, and obviously disclaimer, I met Chris through his program, which I'm still currently in, but it feels really overwhelming to hear that, right? As an entrepreneur, as a business owner, it's like, oh wait, I've got to worry about myself, not just my business. Because Jamie, how many times do you feel like the business comes first? I mean, a lot of times as an entrepreneur, I feel like our business comes before just about everything else in life.
It's your baby. It's, you're waking up in the middle of the night and you're thinking about, I don't know, some client or something that you need to do. Yeah, it is a huge time occupier. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I've seen it in the past as well. If you don't look after yourself, you can't perform the best. So I love that term, business is your sport, because there's so many influencers out there. We've spoken about this on the podcast before.
Yeah.
Waking up at 4 a.m. and this is their guide to being successful. You've got to journal, you've got to do an ice bath, you've got to do a 2-hour workout. Yeah. And if you don't follow it, you're not going to be successful. And I think people look at that and try and replicate it and fail and think, oh, well, this person must be Superman. Like, how can I even compete with that? But I think what you promote with your program is not healthy. There's a lot that you can be doing just to get started, and it's going to make you feel 10 times better. Yeah.
Well, to begin, I think, look, most entrepreneurs and hustlers, like people who are really passionate about business, first things first, those individuals love to invest. And I think the biggest blind spot is not seeing that investing in your self-care is the number one revenue generating investment you can possibly make. And so they miss the mark right out of the gate because they see that as becoming something that interferes with their ability to be successful, as opposed to something that accelerates their ability to be successful. And, I think part of it is teaching people how to do a very hard, honest audit on their lifestyle and figuring out where they need to make some additions, where they need to make some subtractions, where they need to make some substitutions that can create this lifestyle that integrates investment in their health and wellness and still creates space for them to be able to, pour into their business, pour into their family, pour into their social activities. And eventually, it's sort of like a dance. It's like choreography. You get on the dance floor and you're learning a dance for the first time. Like, you're going to stumble, you're going to trip over your feet, like you're going to make mistakes, but eventually, like, you start to find your rhythm. And once you get that rhythm humming and you start to feel and see these shifts happening, you can't unfeel and unsee those shifts happening. And it just becomes a whole new way of thinking, acting, being, and doing that is easy as waking up and taking your first breath. But the first stage of all of that is being able to identify and see that investing in your self-care is a revenue generating investment. And then I think, honestly, for a lot of people, they really need to find a coach that can help them identify where to do these audits and where to make these changes and adjustments. Because just like any industry, like, I'm not a real estate agent. If I said, hey, I just want to go and start selling houses and I go out on my own, what do you think the chances are that I'm going to be successful?
Very little.
Pretty low. But what would be my first step if I'm a smart business person? I'm going to go find the most successful real estate agent.
You're going to join Coptree Enterprises.
There you go. Right? I'm going to go on listing appointments. I'm going to sit next to you and listen to you cold call and prospect. I'm going to watch you go through all the legal documentations and what those processes look like. I'm going to study and examine everything that you do because you have figured out a way to be successful in that area. And once I learn that, the process of selling real estate becomes easy, right? Or easier, I would say, right? And so just like same thing with your health and fitness, this is an area where a lot of people just don't have that skill set. And it's not a slight on people or a knock on anybody, but it's not easy to try to figure it out on your own because there's the internet now, there's tons of information, tons of disinformation. So, you read one thing, it says this, 2 minutes later, you read another thing, it says the complete opposite. So it's trying to find somebody that you can trust, that can guide you and direct you and help you accelerate your learning curve so that you can get into that rhythm faster where eventually it just becomes seamless.
So do you think that's why you in particular attract a lot of high level CEOs, entrepreneurs, large real estate agents, teams, people of that nature, is because you kind of have the code cracked? And maybe it's that, for example, Jamie, I think you're the same way. I don't ever try to reinvent the wheel. I try to learn from the success of others. And I think that's kind of why you've been such a good fit. It's that as an entrepreneur, it is overwhelming to try to add in. I think sometimes, you get too frustrated on the initial, like, well, I'm supposed to eat what or work out when? Never mind. I've got this meeting. I've got this, and when it becomes so complex and complicated, taking care of yourself it's the easiest thing to let go. And I struggle with that all the time. I don't feel like Jamie struggles with it. I think you're just like always at the gym, like doing your high rocks. But for me, it's like,
smooth sailing.
especially, having a team that I'm driving around. It's like, okay, well, now my mornings, the only way to work out is wake up at 5. I'm not going to bed until 9, 10, depending on, my work schedule. So it's like become impossible to get up, get to the gym, get back out to my house. So it's like,
right. But
connecting.
One caveat to that, and I'll speak specifically about you as an example and this is a key phrase that I cover with all of my clients, is teaching them how to master the art of adjustment. Right? Because even though we have a game plan and you say, hey, look, I got to get up at 5 a.m. and hit my workouts and this is what it's got to be. That's our infrastructure. That's our baseline of what we try to follow. But inevitably, deals drop on your plate, family emergency pops up, something happens and you can't hit that 5 a.m. workout. Now, if you aren't a master of the art of adjustment, you're going to feel right out of the gate when you wake up in the morning, my day is completely blown up. You start on a negative feedback loop. You're frustrated. You're disappointed. You start to feel overwhelmed. Oh, I failed today. I can't do it. This is impossible. How am I going to make this all work? But working with me, or, if you're working with any good coach, they're going to teach you, hey, listen, this is all about learning how to move the parts around and still have it function.
Yeah.
So you can't get your 5 a.m. workout. Great. Well, how do we adjust your meals for today according to a timeline that you're going to be working out at 5 p.m. because you look at your calendar and identify very quickly, I've got a slot open at 5 p.m. So now in your mind, you can relax and go, great. Now I just got to handle and deal with whatever's in front of me right at the moment, stay relaxed and composed, focus on that. And you already situated the rest of your day by learning how to master that art of adjustment and having that resilience of knowing how to pivot on the fly. And when you have that skill set down, it's almost like there's nothing that can ever really throw your day off, because just like a football analogy, you get up to the line of scrimmage and you're ready to call a play, and all of a sudden you're looking and seeing a different defense, and now you got to call an audible. You got to change the play because the defense that's set up looks like they're pretty much going to either sack you, intercept the ball, like you're not going to get very far. So it's really learning how to call audibles on a day-to-day basis, on a moment-to-moment basis. And when you learn how to master that skill set because you've been through enough experiences or certain situations that are relevant, specific to your life and how your life kind of moves and navigates, you start to develop a playbook that becomes your playbook, that these are the plays that we usually call, but then these are the audibles that I have in place. So if I see something that comes up against me, against my offense for the day, I know exactly what audible to call and how to manipulate and move those parts around. Therefore, your day never really falls apart. It's just about how is it going to play out today.
Yeah, I find that really interesting. I feel like for a lot of people as well, they try and jump into the deep end in the beginning. They've probably seen a guide online and seen, oh, you got to work out every day and do it for an hour and you've got to push your body to the limit. And they think, yes, starting tomorrow, I'm going to do that. And they get like 2-3 days in and they're like, my legs don't work anymore. I'm super hungry. I'm really tired. I'm not actually benefiting from this because you went in too hard. And I think, my schedule has kind of adapted. Like, it used to be pretty crazy. I was doing 5 days a week of CrossFit. So every morning, an hour of CrossFit, just putting my body at the limit. And then Saturday, Sunday running, doing at least, I don't know, like 7 or 8 miles on a Saturday and maybe 3 miles on a Sunday. And I was doing that week on week on week. I had no rest days. But at the time, I was doing a lot of rugby growing up. I've done a lot of fitness over time. So like my body has adapted, and I didn't just start at doing that level of fitness. It was something that was done incrementally, and your body kind of adapts to that. But as I've progressed and as I've got a bit older now, like I'm doing less. I'm doing 3 days a week of CrossFit. I'm making sure that I'm resting more. I'm kind of listening to my body more. I'm using tools like I've got my Apple Watch and stuff that's telling me like my HRV, like how ready my body is for a hard workout. And if it's not ready, like if I've been out drinking and celebrating and having a good time with my friends, I'm now more sensible and thinking, okay, I'm not going to go to the gym and kill myself that next morning because it's just not going to help. It's not going to be beneficial. But at the beginning, I had no idea. I was like, yeah, I can go out for a night out, stay out till 2, 3, 4 a.m.
Oh, Jamie
and then
can
go
do
out
that
for a big
too.
run. go for a big run the next morning. And then I'm like, oh, why was my run shit? You know, like, why am I not performing? But it's something that like I've been adapting to that and actually adjusting myself to it. But I think for a lot of people, when they start on a fitness journey, they want to just go in the deep end. And I see that as well with things like fad diets as well, right? People read about those online and think, yeah, if I just follow this, I'm going to have a 6-pack and look great on the beach. And then they don't realize it's not sustainable. So like, where do people find you, Chris? Like, do you find that the clients that approach you have tried some of this, or maybe like, I don't know, maybe too scared to try it? Like, where in the journey do they find you?
Oftentimes people are usually coming to me before they hit rock bottom, but they're close, right? Because I think because, and I'm not saying everybody, but I'm saying a lot of people that come to me, because the majority of my business is a referral basis only. You know, I don't, if you follow me on social media, you see I don't really promote and advertise. I don't market my program. And there's a reason for that, you know, because I have a lot of high expectations that I don't know that everybody is quite ready for. And I say that respectfully, you know, because my program isn't right for everybody, you know, and
I had to make some big, you had I actually respect that and don't think I've told you had some non-negotiables, because I had a trainer in the past and she's amazing. But the problem was it was 2 days out of 7 for an hour. I had her.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so minimal, and your non-negotiable is like, you have to do mine exact. The reason it's a total program is, and I had to have that conversation with her, which was a hard conversation. But you know, I appreciate that you had those non-negotiables.
But having been in the program now for quite some time, you understand the reason why, because you know, there are so many different layers and components to the program that if I don't know what you're doing in every particular area, then I can't guarantee the results you're getting, because I don't know what's working, what's not working based on what you're doing. If you're just doing whatever you want to do with your diet, but you're following my workout program, how can I give you any type of reassurance about why you're not seeing the results you're looking for? Because diet greatly impacts how you look and how your body performs. So there are very specifics about the program. Again, it's not from I'm up on a pedestal, like the program's better than anybody else type of process. It's more because I'm so passionate about this process and I really care a lot about helping people get the results they want. When someone pays me and invests in me, I take that responsibility very seriously. And although we have a lot of fun on the journey, you know, I do take the work very seriously. And I think that most clients find it in the beginning, it might feel a little bit overwhelming in the sense of like they're trying to learn so many new things, right? But I'm trying to give you an accelerated course of getting there fast. And then once you get your feet underneath you, it really, like, we're just in lockstep and we're just grooving and dancing, and it just becomes this fun back and forth of watching these progressions unfold in ways that you can't even imagine. I mean, I'll give you a brief example. I mean, I have a guy who came into the program late fees, early fees. He was a CrossFitter.
Jamie.
So he couldn't walk if he's in his 40s by then.
One of the biggest things for him was that he's never cooked a meal in his life. And 100% of his meals were eaten out.
That's crazy.
And I told him, I said, listen, if you're going to join the program, it's a non-negotiable. You're going to have to learn how to cook. Now, you don't have to cook all your meals because, you know, Andrea, that part of what I offer in the program is, you know, menu support. If you're going out to restaurants, I help you navigate selections and whatnot. So I can certainly teach you how to do that. But this guy eating out 100% of the time. You know,
that's mad. No, what sort of things was he eating? Did it seem like healthy?
For all intents and purposes, it's not like he wasn't going through like drive-throughs and crushing terrible food. He wasn't in like horrible shape and super unhealthy. But I mean, when you look at it from like an inflammatory perspective, like inflammation in the body, when you're eating out at restaurants, there's only so much you can do because you have no control over what oils they use to cook and what ingredients you just don't know. The way you know is you buy your own food and you cook and prepare your own food. You know exactly what's going into it.
That'd be really intimidating if you've never cooked, to be like, you got to figure this out. Like, did he even have pots and pans?
It's so rewarding if you end the program and you can cook.
Right? Yeah. I mean, So to this day, right now, I mean, he's been in the program almost his first 90 days, absolutely killing it. Like, I'm so impressed with this guy. But to this day, I mean, aside from like the physical changes, he's like, I am so like happy and excited about the fact that I've learned the skill set of cooking. But beyond that, one thing that was a unexpected surprise for him is that he's like, I spend so much more time at home now with my family and my kids because I cook. We spend time around the kitchen cooking and enjoying food together and conversations. Like, you can't put a price on that. And so this guy had no clue what he was missing out on just from the simple fact of learning a skill set of cooking. You know what I mean? Like,
that's amazing.
Those little nuggets are like, those are the things.
Those are life lessons.
So those are life lessons. And so that's why, like, for me, like, I care so much about this process. Like, somebody coming in cold off of Instagram, you know, isn't really looking for that level of coaching. They're looking for a $150 program that's sort of like a carbon copy, like rinse and repeat, no coaching, no guidance, no support. I mean, it's just no accountability. But most people generally will go to a conference or they'll be out amongst, you know, their peers in a social environment and bump into a client of mine, not knowing that they're a client of mine, but just bump into that individual.
That's exactly what happened to me.
Like, you can see you can just see the change in that individual, and it's just radiating off of them. And then it just spawns into a conversation. And it's generally, these conversations are meeting that person who's inquiring at a place where they're starting to reflect and go, you know, these are things that I'm struggling with too, because I think a lot of people suffer in silence. And don't really talk about the things they're struggling with, which I understand. But once you get into some conversation and you're looking at an actual tangible reflection of somebody who is breeding all of the things that you're desiring, that's usually the moment that people ask for my number and we'll make the call, which we then set up the consult and then have that conversation to see if it's a good fit for both of us, you know?
Yeah. That's fascinating. And what would you say is the hardest part for people, or maybe, and then kind of going from that into like, what is the most beneficial? Because you've spoken a bit about the diet and cooking there, because I think that is that misconception. People see online, they see you online, they're like, oh, this guy's jacked, he just goes to the gym and works out, and that's how you get there. But there's so much more to it. Like, what is that hardest part of the program? And
I think
how does it all fit together?
There's a saying that I like to use that says enthusiasm is common, endurance is rare. And I think that a lot of people underestimate how much work it actually takes and how long you need to continue to do this if this is something that you claim is really important to you.
That sounds exactly like starting your own business.
I mean,
it's so exciting in the beginning, and then it's like day in, day out, day in, day out.
Hence you as a business athlete, right? And how and setting yourself up in that regard, right? I mean, if you decide that I want to start taking care of my health and wellness, I want to get into great health and great shape, it's not like you do it for 90 days, get to a certain point, and then you stop and it just holds. Whatever you did to get to that level of health and wellness is something that you have to maintain for the rest of your life, and even continue to put in more work and effort. And because the body is extremely dynamic, ever changing, external environments are changing, stress levels are changing. There's so many things that are moving around constantly that you have to learn how to adapt to those changes. So I think people just highly underestimate what it actually takes to get into great health and great shape. And what I really pride myself on in the program, and I think initially can be a little bit of a chin check for some people right out of the gate, is the accountability component of just staying on top of you. Like, in the beginning of the program, I'm all over you with checking in, looking for pictures of your food, reviewing your form videos of like exercises you're doing in the gym,
Instagram,
actually, like, literally being checking your Instagram, seeing what you're up to, seeing what you're hiding. I'm
Chris is outside your house with binoculars.
Always. I got eyes everywhere. I'm literally being your brain for you, right? Like, I'm teaching. What I'm trying to do is teach you how to think, act, be, and do that's commensurate with somebody who says they want to get into really great health and really great shape. Because most people, like, you're a real estate agent, you know how to think like a real estate agent. Like, you know how to act like a real estate agent, things you got to be and do. Like, you know, all the things you got to do to be a top real estate agent. But your brain doesn't process what things you need to think, act, be, and do to be somebody who represents and reflects health and wellness. right? So I'm constantly being that reminder. And so I think in the beginning, the check-ins, the touching base, the accountability can be like, gosh, like this is a lot. But what is really nice and generally happens is that eventually there starts to become this transition where it's like a handoff. Think of like a relay race, in the Olympics, like you're handing off that baton. It's like, I'm teaching you this pacing and this thinking, of how you should be operating. And eventually I start to take off the training wheels and just kind of watch you go. And we find out either you're riding or we got to put the training wheels back on. And it's, it's different for everybody. But eventually there is a handoff. And what I find to be the greatest success is when I can take those training wheels off. I have people that stay in the program for years, clients I've worked with for 3-4 years. But there's clients who come in for like, 6 months or 9 months. I take the training wheels off and they're running. They leave the program. They come back a year later saying, hey, I want to jump back in for another 90 days. By the way, I'm in better shape than I was when I left because I've maintained everything you taught me. But I have some new goals that I want to set and things that I want to accomplish. Like that is a massive success story because it tells me that we've reshifted, the paradigm of how you're thinking, acting, being, and doing. That has really just become part of who you are now.
What do you think are the biggest misconceptions with entrepreneurs specifically coming into this program? What do you see?
I think the biggest misconception is how much work and effort it actually really takes. I think a big part of creating space for a program like this when you're a busy entrepreneur is learning the power of the word no and getting comfortable with saying no to certain things. I think that's a really important skill set. I use the word skill set because I really do think it does require a skill set because it requires identifying a situation to say no to it. It requires you executing discipline, thinking about like why you have to sort of critically think through like, why am I making this decision and saying no? Like what's the importance of this? If you set certain goals, then the thing you need to focus on is doing whatever it takes to get to that goal. And if something that you're about to engage in or say yes to doesn't move the needle towards that goal, it should be an automatic no for now. But it doesn't mean that it's a no for a lifetime. It just means that, hey, listen, you're setting some very hard, specific goals that you're trying to go after right now. And if that is something that you say is incredibly important to you, I'm over here just I'm taking your words and I'm designing a program that you say you want to achieve specific goals, and then I'm exposing you to hold you accountable to help you reach those goals. We need the expectation would be work within those parameters and we'll help you hit your goals. Anything outside those parameters are going to interfere with it. And so I think it's important to learn how to say no. And if you don't say no, then you have to understand and accept the consequences, or at least lower your expectations a little bit, which by the way is totally fine also, right? Like I don't coach with a hammer and hit people over the head with, you have to do this. It's more about helping people, remind them of what they said they wanted, creating the game plan, helping them with decision making along the way. And if you choose to go off track a little bit, just being able to frame up the expectation, which sometimes the trade-off is totally fine if that's something that's important to you. But you have to understand and be realistic with yourself. You can't be beating yourself up for not hitting your goal faster when you've consciously made the choice to do some other things that you felt had a little bit more value at that time than that goal, which again is totally fine. But it's just keeping those expectations always in check so that there's never a gap between what you expect and what is actually showing up. Because in that gap of expectation and what's actually there, what's going on, if that gap is huge, that's where like depression, negative feelings and thoughts and like frustration and doubt and all that stuff lives. If that gap is closed, you don't worry about it because the expectations and the efforts are aligned with each other.
When I first started my real estate team, I had this really bad habit of portraying an image of what I wanted for them or putting my goals on them. And, my level of where I want to be and my success and my drive might be 15, 10, 20 fold that of an agent, a normal agent who says, hey, I want to make this amount of money to live. And I realized early on that to run a team, you have to do that. You have to have, what are your specific goals? So for Mason, Hannah, everyone on our team, like what are their goals? What do they want to be? And then I set exactly like that. We do the plan, the goals, the guidelines, And this is to get you from A to Z where you want to be from January 1st to December 3rd. And they have to hold themselves accountable, but I'm there for that support. We do our one-on-ones. And when, I look at them and I said, well, your goal was to do 6 open houses. You've done 1. And why do you think you're off this quarter? Well, your goal was to come in and do lead generation 2 days a week. You haven't been in outside of team meetings. So exactly, they have these big gaps. So I should be doing this. And well, last year I did that. Well, last year you were in the office 3 to 4 days a week, honing in on your skills. And this year I haven't seen you except for team meetings, so I think there is a lot of that in real estate too.
And again, like just to piggyback on that point, right? Like there's some clients who come into the program and I help them sort of like their expectation is way out here.
Mm-hmm. I was just about to ask you that. I can imagine that.
I know the bandwidth that they have in their life just based on the conversation, discovery call that we're having and understanding the scope of their life. And so right out of the gate, we'll lower their expectations to close that gap. Looking to get to 10% body fat and they want a 6-pack and they're at 30% body fat. And they've got 2 kids. They just had a newborn that came in. So now they got 3 kids. This guy just started a business. I'm looking at it going, dude, there's no way. Like there's absolutely no way that you can hit that goal in this time period. And what we need to focus on more is making sure that we have a program that's designed around really great nutrition, around getting good quality sleep, because with a newborn in the house and a business, like you need tons of sleep to make sure you're rested and restored. And then make sure that we've got some really good strategic programming in place that doesn't destroy your nervous system, but does help you build muscle, get strong, and keep you lean. So it's lowering the expectations a little bit so that your expectations and your effort feel closer together. Like for the example you gave, if that person said, hey, look, I want to sell 2 homes this year, right? And you're going in going, hey, so far you got 1 home sold, you're 50% to your goal. They're like, oh my God, I'm almost there. Like, that expectation and that goal are so close together. You're like, I only got to sell 1 more home. Maybe you don't want an agent in your office who is, their goal is only 2 homes a year.
No, definitely not.
That's your decision.
Like that needs to be at least a month.
Of course. But that's your decision to make, right?
Yeah.
But for the individual, if they're looking at their skill sets and they're looking at their potential, their capabilities, and they're setting the proper goal based on what they know they're actually willing to put out, that's how you reduce the stress and the anxiety,
burnout, fatigue,
the
depression.
fatigue. Like you got to be realistic with how you set your goals.
Yeah.
And there's going to be times in your life when you can certainly turn on the jets and you have more latitude to be able to go hard and make better choices and make more sacrifices. There's going to be periods and seasons in your life when you're going to have to learn how to scale it back a little bit. You got to reduce the intensity. You got to add another rest day and trade it for a training day. You got to adjust your calories a little bit. You got to add more sleep and more recovery protocols. Like it's very nuanced. And that's really, I think, again, the big part of the program is that while I'm taking this journey with you, I'm learning about you and your life and all the different circumstances that show up in your life. And when those circumstances show up, they're teachable, coachable moments to be able to show you how to keep building your playbook for the next 40, 50 years, that as these things come up for you, you know what play to call and how to make those adjustments that are going to best suit you in that time.
Do you think there's a problem with optics around this? Because I think for a lot of people, they go on social media and they look at other people and they go, wow, look at this guy, he's got a great body, he's looking great. I want to be like that and run a startup. And I mean, you've been through it. You were an IFBB bodybuilder, right? So you've or whatever the term is, right? You've been down that journey where you've had to be massive and shredded. And I've got a friend who runs a startup and he is an IFBB bodybuilder.
Wow.
He wakes up really early and he goes to the gym. He goes to the gym twice a day. He's eating a load of food, but then he's also starving himself for that run up to the competition. And he's actually at the weakest point when he's on the stage and showing his muscles, and he's not getting good sleep. He's not having enough calories and carbs in the day to actually have good sleep. He can't focus on sales. So his startup takes a hit because he wants to achieve in the bodybuilding competition. Is that just social media, or do you think there's a problem that we have today that we see all these people want to look like them?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would say it's necessarily, I don't want to call it a problem because I respect what fitness competitors and fitness influencers, the disciplines that they exhibit to be
Oh,
able to
yeah.
achieve certain goals, right? I think what's sort of missing, and it's understandable why it's missing, is that an average person is just scrolling through social media. They come across that individual's page and they see somebody that they want to look like and resemble. But again, they have no clue. They highly underestimate how much work and
Oh,
effort
gosh.
goes into looking like
Yeah.
that. Do you understand? Like, I put it more on the person who's looking at it versus the person who's conveying it, only because they're just showing, hey, this is me at my best. And most fitness competitors and bodybuilders, when you're looking at their social media pages, very few of them stay in that peak condition all year long. It's a small window in a period of time. They get peak condition for shows, they get in peak condition for photo shoots.
Do a ton
Right.
of photo shoots, and that's what you're
Ton of
seeing over
photo
the next
shoots,
6
build this
months.
content, and then
Yeah.
they spread it out over throughout the
Yeah.
year. And look, there are some fitness influencers out there that I think probably don't have the best intentions, but I think the majority of them are probably in a really good space in their life where they're passionate about health and fitness, and they really do want to just try to like inspire other people,
Well, don't
and
we
show
do the
people
same
what they're
thing
doing.
in our business? Like, never
Of
have
course.
I posted a week where it's like, well, no one was in the office. I fired 2 employees
that
and
deal.
didn't sell any real
Yeah.
estate. Like, but like when I'm like, holy, we closed 8 deals this week. Kate, marketing
That's going on
post,
social media.
Yes, it is. Yeah, yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
great
The
point,
days
right?
that you guys don't see me on social media, those are like and sometimes I try to be very real. So like I'll post like no makeup. I've been in the office since 6 a.m. It's 8 p.m. Like, I'm
Yeah.
dead. I'll do that with I try to be very raw, but of course, but the thing is, I want to share my high. I'm excited. I'm excited to share it. I'm excited to, and I think that,
You want to inspire,
yeah,
and that's what I think. Again, I think a lot of fitness influencers, I think they do have, the majority of them do have good intentions. And look, they're on camera. Like, not many people want to go on and just like show when they're not feeling their best and looking their best,
yeah.
right? Like, even though we can sit here, it's easy for us to sit on the other side and go, hey, listen, it'd be the right thing to do to make sure that you portray the good and the bad, because everybody thinks it's all good. It's like, whatever, you're on camera. Nobody wants to post stuff not looking
But
their
it's
best and
also
feeling
their
their best. And
job,
that's just,
right? Like, do you
well,
agree
it
with
depends.
that?
Like, who says it's their job to
Yeah.
show you the good and the bad?
No, but
Like,
I
they
mean,
didn't sign a document or an agreement to say, hey, listen,
no, not
I
that.
agree to show.
I'm
Oh, okay,
saying
okay.
they're a fitness influencer. Literally, they are coaches,
Yes.
they're influencers,
Yeah.
they're athletes.
Yeah.
They are
It's
a
part of their
model,
advertising.
they're a swimsuit
Yeah,
model.
part
Like
of their,
the people
yes.
I follow that I'm like, oh my God, like she's a model. Literally, when I wake up and I'm in this office for 12 hours a day, like her food, her supplements, her workouts, her skincare routine, like that's literally how she makes her income,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
people forget that too. So
No, I totally agree. I mean, it's part of what they do for a
yeah.
living. And so, in some regards, they have a lot more space and a lot more capacity throughout the day to be able to do everything that involves health and wellness, because this is what they do for a living, right? Getting a workout in is not a problem because they got to be in the gym anyways, filming content. So it's easy for them, right?
Yep.
They're essentially being paid to do it.
Yeah,
And maybe
getting paid to do it, which is great.
Yeah, and maybe to some degree, as entrepreneurs and as business leaders, that's also something you've got to think about as well, right?
Yeah,
if you're
sure.
if you're making a salary, if you're making money, you need to invest that into yourself and being healthy, eating the right food, getting enough sleep. So,
and to go back to your initial point, Jamie, like, I think that there is nothing wrong with, just like anything, you can use envy in a positive way, or it can be a negative thing. Like, you can overdo it. It can go too far the other direction and become a very negative thing. Well, even though this is what I do for a living, I'm 48 years old. And I've been in the gym and prioritizing nutrition and like
You've been in the
dieting
gym 6 times today.
30 but I've been doing it for 30 years. Like, when you talk about endurance and like being able to do this for a long period of time, like, there's periods where I get a little burnt out and maybe I don't like go as hard as I've ever gone before. And I certainly will look at like other fitness influencers and be like, oh man, I remember when I was like that big, or I remember I was that dialed in, and like, but I never really, personally, I never let it go too far to where it like, it makes me feel bad about myself. And I think that that's an individual case basis in terms of this being able to manage your perspective on looking at these people. And so I think the conversation that we're having is, hey, listen, these people are here to kind of showcase themselves, advertise their business, and provide some inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see somebody you think that looks great and that you'd love to kind of look like and emulate, great, follow them. But don't use it as a way to like then look at yourself in the mirror immediately after and like pick yourself apart and just question why you can't look like that and put all this pressure that you have to look like that. Because also too, some of these people, like, they look amazing, they look like a 10, but they feel like a 2, and they're not showing that.
Yeah.
So, and I'll tell you right now, looking like a 10 and feeling like a 2 will never be worth it. I promise you that right now. You would rather feel like a 10 and look like a 2 than the opposite. Okay.
Maybe a 5 and a 5, like a
all right,
10 out of 10. That's what I'm going.
Meet you halfway on that. But
like
but
10,
how you
10.
feel is really, really important. So I think just having some perspective, giving the general population a little knowledge and education around, hey, listen, like these fitness influencers, it's not everything that you're seeing, but be mindful about what you take from them and what you're judging against yourself.
Yeah. Well, I never came
definitely.
to you with any really people. What are your goals? What are your goals around fitness? I really don't remember having any fitness goals. Like I came to you, I was like, my gut is so trash. I'm eating so clean. I feel horrible. I remember being in the office, like super diet and like out of nowhere, just my stomach and just not feeling good. And it was hard to finish my day. And I've always been a very healthy eater. I've always worked, not always, but like, the last decade and a half. And I didn't know what was wrong, and cleaning up my diet and it's funny because I ate healthy. I continued to eat healthy, but changing the types of healthy, like we cut out nuts. I'm super sensitive to them and never realized how impactful that really was. It's like, I was tired of being at the office and feeling like crap. And I was putting all this energy I was overtraining at the gym. I had high inflammation. I felt like I was doing so much work and I wasn't seeing progress. I thought I was eating healthy. I was tired of researching and figuring out what I should eat. And I kind of felt like I had tried everything and my gut wasn't going to feel good. I wasn't going to feel right. Maybe I needed to see a doctor. That's kind of, I think, where everything came from. I wanted to feel good. I never said, help me get abs.
Not quite at the bottom of the barrel. But almost.
Yeah.
You went to see Dr. Chris.
Yeah,
right?
I was. I mean, I remember just sitting in the office some days and being like, I need to go home and just go to bed. My gut feels horrible. And it was to the point to where like there were periods in my life where like I would do these ridiculous like 22 hour fasts, and I wasn't trying to lose weight. It felt like everything I was eating hurt. No, like chicken or steak or oil
once the inflammation is gone off, right? Like you think of inflammation like a pool. And once you've got that accumulation of inflammation in the body and it's just spilling over constantly, if you're not doing things to drain the pool, then anything you put in is just going to continue to keep overflowing that inflammatory
pool. Yeah.
So, again, you didn't know that if some of the foods you were eating were really inflammatory and disruptive to your body. So in your mind, you're like, I don't know what it is, but you keep putting these inflammatory ingredients and foods into your body that keep filling the pool. So you're drowning in it. Right.
Yeah.
So once we identify specific foods and things to kind of cut out of your diet, it allowed the pool to drain. And now what's great about that is that, you can go back and enjoy nuts occasionally, or you can have some foods that are a bit inflammatory or triggering to your body occasionally at small doses spread out over a period of time where it doesn't overflow that inflammatory pool and create issues.
So what are some takeaways? Like, sorry, Jamie,
that's
go.
What I'm curious of.
Yeah. Like,
no, I'm literally
today,
right now. Same level. We're getting towards the end now, and as much as we'd like to clone you, Chris, and everyone to have a Chris, they're not going to have a Chris.
Yeah.
So we need to get some key takeaways. Like, what can people, and our viewers, these entrepreneurial people, what can they start doing today to get to a better place?
Mental clarity, physical energy.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I find really interesting, especially as it relates to health, is that there are a lot of things you can do, but if you're not really sure and you're not really doing anything specific right now for your health, you could just pick one or two things that create a small, like 2-degree change of trajectory in your life that doesn't really feel disruptive to your life. And just like anything, compounded over time, like it's going to completely change the course of how you start to feel, look, and function. Right. So for example,
start small and be disciplined.
Be
exactly.
consistent.
Like for example, let's say like high level entrepreneurs, one of the things you're not doing is you're not getting you're not getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. If you're getting 4 to 5 hours of sleep, prioritize 7 hours minimum. Do that for a month, whatever it takes. Like I said earlier, if you have a very specific goal, you got to do whatever it takes if it's that important to you. And so if you just commit, we're talking a 2-degree wheel change of going from 4 to 5 hours to guaranteed 7 hours minimum. You do that for a month. Watch the difference in how your life changes and how you feel, the cognitive function, the energy, how your body, if you're in the gym working out, how you start to build more muscle and burn more fat because your body's getting more recovery and restoration of testosterone and growth hormone in the better quality deep sleep cycles. Yeah. Watch the difference in how that impacts your life. Another example would be if you're somebody who eats fast food, cut all fast food out for a month and replace it with easy food items that you can cook at home. Even like small meals, like start cooking some hard-boiled eggs and having those for snacks. Grass-fed ground beef. If you never cooked before in your life, it's pretty simple to take a pound of grass-fed ground beef, put it in a pan, and stir it around until it goes from red to brown. Now you got a pound of grass-fed ground beef. You know what I mean? Like, that's all you really need to do. So just cutting fast food out for a month. Watch the quality of your life. Another one, not as it's easy, but it's not as easy. Alcohol. Take alcohol out for a month. If you didn't change your sleep and you didn't change your nutrition, but you stopped having drinking 4 or 5 nights a week because you're using that as a stress reliever at night when you come home from work to kick back and knock off a stressful day, cutting alcohol out for a month completely. Watch the difference.
That's so sad to hear.
But again, like if you're feeling shitty enough and if life is hitting you hard enough and it's important enough to you, are you willing to do whatever it takes to get there? And so, going back to the question that you asked before, like where do people meet me? I like to try to get people before it's too late because there are certain instances where we're humans and we're very reactive beings. And so usually people will make changes when it's forced upon them. For example, sitting in the doctor's office and that 10 seconds of silence when the doctor's trying to figure out how to break the news to you that, this is where your liver, I don't know what to tell you, but you've got cirrhosis or you're diabetic and we got to put you on diabetes medication now, like whatever it might, like you don't want to be in that situation.
Yeah.
Right? So, ideally you want to try to do these hard audits and these honest audits and say, look, what are a few things that I can change that are simple? If I'm not feeling my best, am I drinking 4 or 5 nights a week? Let me cut that out and just try that for a month and see how I feel.
I also like how approachable all of these are as well. You don't need to, if anything, you're saving people money here, Chris, because you cut alcohol out of your life, you're going to save a shitload of money.
Oh gosh, so much money is saved.
$300 a month.
If you're doing fancy wine per bottle, like come on,
you're gonna profit from this. And then you got fast food, right? You save all that money from fast food. If you spend that in the supermarket, you're getting better quality food, probably for cheaper, and you're gonna feel better. Yeah. And then lastly, sleep. There's this amazing book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
He's a legend.
He's the king of sleep. And it starts off saying, what if I could give you a drug that's going to make you stronger, healthier, feel amazing, all of these benefits? You'd be like, oh, like how much do I need to spend on this drug? This is amazing.
That's why I led with sleep when you said what are some of the things, because we're trying to talk about
and it's
simple changes that people can make, right? And I talked about those 3 things: sleep, cutting out fast food and cutting out alcohol. I'm not even saying don't do all 3 of those at once.
Just do one.
Just pick one of them. Pick one of those things and implement that for a month and tell me you don't look and feel better. And once you look and feel those changes, you can't unfeel that.
Yeah.
If you ever go back to that habit, it's a very quick reminder of how good you felt before, and you don't want to feel that way anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So these are ways that you kind of back into reconditioning somebody's mind to getting them moving in a better direction towards their health and well-being.
Yeah.
I think this is brilliant and actionable.
You knock it over and it's just a chain reaction of good things.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
This has been amazing. I love it. And I think this is like real, and that's what I wanted to get to, is like the real world, because people see me, with all my supplements, or Jamie at his high rocks, or Chris with his buff picks. And, it doesn't have to be that. Like, everybody start from a place of, you want to feel better, and start small. I think that's huge.
Yeah. It's been amazing.
Tag that. And I love that you use yourself as an example, but just something as simple as your supplements, right?
Yeah.
You do your supplements every Sunday morning. Hey guys, here I am. Like, it's such an easy thing to not do, right? But
it's so easy.
Because you recognize the importance and the value of it, it probably takes you 10 minutes or less on a Sunday morning to put all your supplements together for the week, so that when you wake up on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you grab your supplement container, you're locked and loaded, ready to go, and it's just,
keep it simple, keep it simple, and be consistent. That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you so much.
An amazing episode, so insightful. I feel like I'm learning things as we're talking about it, so it's just been fantastic.
This is your way of getting the program for free. You just keep bringing me onto the podcast.
I love it. Thank you so much. And if you all did not listen to the first episode, go learn a little bit about Chris. This was supposed to be the first episode, but we were just so excited to hear about how he got started, how he built his business. So definitely go give that a listen. And if you're listening to the first one first, you're lucky, because you get all this follow-up. So thank you so much.
And if you want to learn more about Chris, we're going to link to his website below and his Instagram. So go and check it out. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Guys. Have fun.
Bye.